Realism.
Yeah. Um, yeah, this is our next episode of the Edmond Urbanist podcast. Today we've got Ben Gardner with us, and he's a good friend of mine from middle school and high school, and he is the proprietor of the Griffin Antique Mall here in Edmond. And so thank you, Ben, for joining us today. We're going to hop right into it. So tell me a little bit about yourself and about your business and what all you do.
So I grew up, obviously, in Chandler. Growing up doing vacations, doing antiquing and different stuff like that. And I grew up in an old farmhouse, and so we just had antiques all around us.
That's right.
And so it was just always kind of an everyday life thing for me. And, as we got older, my wife and I got married, and we lived in our old house in Oklahoma City, and, we kind of went through a phase where, you didn't really take a lot of that stuff seriously. And as we got older and stuff, it started to mean more once you start remembering and people start drifting off and going away. You start kind of remembering all those times. And so we really started diving back into it, and we got into doing the vintage stuff and reselling and antiques, and then decided, we kind of felt that there was a missing gap. And so here in town, and so we decided, hey, you know what? Let's just open up our own place. So
that's great. So were you doing that like on the side, and then decided you're just going to jump in and do it full time?
Yeah. So I was in food service for about 15 years before that, working in different retirement communities and stuff. And then I guess it was right about 2020 when the pandemic kind of hit, and food service started getting, they were stepping on everyone's throats, and it just got to where it was too much, back and forth on what's going on. And so I jumped ship and went and worked for myself a little bit, and then went for my brother and his architecture firm for a couple of years, kind of managing their woodworking, millwork side. So did that for a little while, and then,
So tell me a bit about your business model for folks who may not be familiar with how, again, your type of store works.
So our mall is, we consider ourselves micro landlords. So we rent a 10,000 square foot building in a little office or a industrial park, and it was just an empty shell. So we went and built, we kind of sat down and sketched out, how do we want this layout to be? What, in our, experience, what are the most pleasurable shopping experiences when it comes to multi-vendor malls? And so with that, we started sketching out different layouts of how do we want booths to look, and how do we want to use the space, what's going to be the most efficient, but also create a organized and, obviously like well thought out layout, no dead ends, there's certain things like that where it's like, this is very important to us. And then we built it all out. And basically the way it works is, we have the space and we have a bunch of small businesses. So these are people who are either doing this full time or part time. And they enjoy the reselling, and most people find it fun to shop, and then they need something to do with the stuff, after they've done that. So we've created spaces where they can then put that stuff, and then they don't have to necessarily like field all the Facebook Marketplace messages and stuff. So this is kind of a place where, they can style it, they can do, however they want to curate their space. And so they pay a monthly rent for their space, and then we take a commission fee, and then we do all the marketing, we do all the social media, we do website, because we ship nationwide, so we have someone who takes photographs of all the smaller items that can be boxed and shipped, and then we also do some furniture and stuff, but those are all obviously like custom quotes.
Sure.
But yeah, basically we built it out to where it's as easy as it can possibly be for the vendor, where they input all their stuff. Like, we don't do handwritten tags, so they can enter everything. We have software that they enter all their items in. We print stickers, they stick it on, stick it in their booth. And so, but yeah, basically it's, we have, I think right now, I think we have around 55 or 56 micro small businesses that are under our umbrella that, rent space for. Yeah, but that's kind of the model is.
Okay. And so you mentioned 10,000 square feet. I mean, that is a huge, that is a huge space, and 55 vendors. And I mean, these are, I've been there before. I'm trying to give an idea for folks about how big a booth might be.
Yeah, they range from, I mean, we have all the way from like 2x2 for someone who just kind of wants a more bookshelf style, like you have a lot of small like vintage toys, dishes, all the way up to, I mean, we have one lady who we actually removed a wall, so she has like a 7 or 8 foot deep by, I think it ended up being about 16 feet wide. So she basically took 2 booths and we removed a wall and then she expanded. And then we have some people that do multiple booths. So we have, about 55 or 56 vendors, but we have a total of 80 booths.
Wow.
And so some people have multiple, because some people may have like a little bit more mid-century modern stuff, and they just want to style a booth in mid-century, and then we have another one that wants more Victorian, or they just need overflow. They grew out of this booth, and so they want to take on another booth. And maybe they style it differently, maybe they don't. But yeah, so we really don't have, we have certain rules, like we have an 80-20 rule, we call it, which is 80% has to be retro, vintage, antique. 20% can be kind of a wholesale, so think like party napkins, kitschy dish towels and stuff that just, a quick grab that maybe help with throwing a party or doing something. But outside of that, like we try to really make sure that we help our vendors curate, quality, nice stuff, keep it clean. That's a comment we get a lot, is that everything's very well organized and clean.
Definitely. I concur with that. So I've been a couple times, and it's a very impressive setup.
Yeah.
And it is very visually appealing and feels very comfortable. Depending on your experience with antique shops or whatever, sometimes it could just feel really cluttered and like everything is kind of thrown in. And this all, like you mentioned, is very organized, very intentional in the layout, and because you can kind of move from style and aesthetic to style and aesthetic, it makes you feel like you're spending your time well, and you're not just wondering about aimlessly because everything's just kind of thrown in there together.
Well, that was the other nice thing, and we were very intentional about the space that we were picking in terms of we didn't want something that was old and dingy. Which, Edmond's not necessarily super old, so there's not a ton of that. But, most of the time these malls go into places where it's off the beaten path in the sense that, it's probably an old manufacturing or something place where, it's seen better days. And so, you kind of get that musky smell, which again, not knocking anybody who's doing that, but that was not the vibe that we were going for. We were actually looking at a bigger space, the old Piggly Wiggly over there on Memorial. But, that was, I think it was around 16,000 square feet, something like that, 20,000, I can't remember.
Wow.
But it was just going to take so much work, because in that back of where the actual aisles used to be and stuff, I mean, it was in pretty bad shape.
Yeah, that would be...
Yeah, it had been abandoned for 10 years. No one's been in there.
That's a good point.
And so... the renovations and stuff would have taken a year just to get the doors open, probably. And so, we know that there's a plan and everything, and so that wasn't what we were supposed to do. And then this place became available, and it was just built in, I think it was 2016, open 2017. So, I mean, it's just a few years old.
Right.
And it's just nice because, I mean, you'd be surprised at how many places, not so much locally, but around that, they don't have HVAC. In a lot of these buildings, or they don't have proper HVAC, or heating, or functioning restrooms and stuff. And so, like, all those things were
not
very
a comfortable
important.
Experience for customers, and you want customers to come and stay a while. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we're continually, changing the ways in which that we're doing things, because obviously we're learning. We've never done this before. I've never worked retail in my life until we opened a retail space, so... we're doing trial by fire on some of this, and
famously easy to learn and master retail market of the 2020s.
Right.
Well, you've touched on this a little bit. So tell me a little bit more about the improvements that you made to that space. So that was formerly it was a clothing store warehouse,
Yeah.
and they kind of we went there before it was you were there, and
Yeah, they had a storefront on
like
one corner,
runway, and kind of some changing areas,
fashion
and then
stuff,
and then they had the warehouse because they were doing a lot of shipping stuff. So
and then
you moved in. They moved to a different part of the same industrial park.
Yep.
You guys moved in. Tell me about the work. I think you all did it yourselves, right?
Yeah. So when we took possession of the building, they had actually converted the entire thing because they knew that they were obviously moving out. So they moved their retail space to the other building that they rent in the park, and it was basically just a giant shell. There was nothing inside, no walls, no anything. There was 2 restrooms, and outside of that, and there was like there's 3 little offices on one corner, and outside of that, it was completely empty. And so what we did was, like I said, we got the blueprints and we overlaid those, and then we just started sketching out how can we maximize the number of booths, number of people, the square footage, because essentially, it's like with any real estate, it's rented by the square foot in a sense that, there needs to be a certain profit per square foot to justify and make sense of everything. And so, and we have to leave, and we were very intentional with making sure we always have a 4-foot walkway, so there's plenty of space for, walkers, because eventually we're going to get little buggies or carts, and stuff. So we want people to be able to pass by each other.
Yeah.
And so, being very intentional with, okay, we have this much square footage that we need to leave for walkways. And then obviously for the, the POS cashier area. And then we kind of wanted a hangout spot in the front. We have a little coffee bar. I use that term very loosely. It's a Keurig machine.
Yeah. I mean, that's
a
coffee machine at pretty much every office nowadays. So,
and so obviously we have hopes and aspirations to add on more to that. But so we basically went in there and we added, and we chose and opted for doing 8-foot like OSB walls. So being able to take those OSBs and rip them up and put together walls. But we did all 2x4 framing, wood. So I mean, when people go to like put stuff in, it's anchored in there pretty well. There's not ripping out a drywall.
Right. Yeah.
And there's no pegboard. We don't allow pegboard at this time in the mall, just because again, we feel like there's a certain level of aesthetics that we like keeping. And so we did that. We ran all of our electrical. We had our electrician come in, and every booth has electric. So we had to map out circuits and stuff. Where is this going to be? Because originally the building was designed for 5 suites that would have gone in there. So there's, essentially, quote, 5 front doors. So we had to try to, create the front, so people know which door to go into, because it's flat. The whole building is pretty flat.
Yeah.
It's a big rectangle.
Yeah.
And so, we don't want to confuse people by putting other things along the building that would kind of make them think that could be the entrance, because most people, when they walk in, they think we're just right there on that corner. And then they walk in and
it goes, and it goes on, and it keeps going, and it keeps going. Yeah.
And it's like, no, we're the entire building. And so, I mean, that's outside of that, then it was, tons of painting. But I mean, that was our biggest deal, was doing that, building all the walls, doing the electrical.
Yeah, and you custom built the signage, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So Edmond is something that we didn't know when we moved in, is they are sticklers when it comes to signage.
Oh, yes.
So that was we didn't think it was going to be this big of hurdles. So like right now, we are still in the process of figuring out, how are we going to build like a marquee by the street, because all those are investments that, we don't own the space.
Right.
So that's something that, like, do we build something that if the location were to ever move, that could go with us? Are we going to move brick? So there's some of those things that we have to get planning through the city, make sure that they're okay with it.
But you've talked about, wanting to be able to maximize that space for more than to utilize some of the outdoor space.
Yeah.
So when you told me about some of the community events that you've done and some of the things you do outdoors, I'm a big fan of this type of stuff. And when a weather cooperates, I think it's great. So yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
So far we have hosted, I think, 2 or 3. My mind's slipping on that one, but basically like sidewalk markets where we invited people who may not have, because typically we don't allow like perishables and stuff in the mall.
Sure.
And so these are people who had applied that wanted to be in there but didn't fit, whether that's like the people that do the geodes and rocks and do some handmade jewelry and stuff, like they just didn't qualify for our one of our booths. And so we invited everybody who had applied that couldn't get in to our outdoor markets. And so we did we cooked out hot dogs, had music and stuff, and just tried to create that little community, and also just bring awareness of that we are there, and there's other things in there also. There is a front yard area, so I'm still having the works to add like a patio kind of vibe, so the husbands, if they don't want to go walk around, they have somewhere to kind of hang out and take the kids maybe.
In my family's case, it's the other way around.
Right.
My wife is like, you want people to go to stuff, and I'm like, oh man, gold-plated things.
Right. Yeah. So, and then there's like a grassy, because the complex, it's like a big triangle. There's 3 buildings that kind of comprise the edges of the triangle, and then in the middle there's a teardrop grassy area with some trees, and it would be awesome someday to put a gazebo and maybe some other kind of seating areas and stuff out there.
I think that area lends itself to being able to host an events like that, because you have a large contained parking areas. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. So tell me, what does the antique market look like here in Edmond? A little bit about who your shoppers are, who your customers are, where they're coming from, and then about the vendors, where they're coming from and what they're bringing.
So I'll start with the vendors. Most of our vendors live, I would say, there's a couple that live here in Edmond. Most of them live in Oklahoma City. I think we have our furthest ones away. We have like one that lives in Tuttle. We have a couple that live down by Norman. And so they're pretty sprawled out from where I can tell, because they're also in other malls in Oklahoma City, Norman, Guthrie. And so, yeah, they come from there. We have a few, they travel the country and shop and find things to bring back. And so that's exciting. But I would say for our clientele, it's shocking, like the range, because, and it's funny because, you can literally, for the most part, you can sit there and set your watch by who comes in when, almost, because, a lot of times we stay open a lot later than any of the other local places do, and most malls in general. And so, in the evenings we'll get teenagers, young 20-year-olds coming in there, shopping around, looking. And we like this as an opportunity with the store to be able to kind of showcase and show people like how to practically use these things in your house. So not everything needs to be vintage or antique, but how do you mix those things in with your daily life? And so trying to showcase some of that, like how to use old things.
Yeah.
Because for me, there's a multi-prong approach to using them. And, for me, one of them is, kind of a buzzword. I don't love it, but for lack of better terms, the eco-friendliness of it. Being able to, I can't tell you the last time, go into a Hobby Lobby, a Target, whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with those, but that's just not my style. I would much rather go find something, because a lot of times I find things I didn't know that I needed access,
Oh, yes.
And so for me, it's, as a collector, that's half the fun, but the other half is like, I like using old things, because that's also what my mom used. Whenever I talk to people about growing up, they're like, what era did you grow up in?
Right. With thrifting as for clothes, and then branching out into some other things, I think it has huge appeal for folks in our generation or younger.
Yeah.
because there's that authenticity to it
Right.
and the durability of like, this is
yeah.
quality.
Made
This
so
is
much
old
better.
old world craftsmanship
Right.
versus something that's just composite and
Right.
thrown. Thinking about furniture, decorations, and it's just like, yeah, there's so much. The whole corporate art, live, laugh, love.
Right. Yeah.
You mentioned some places that, yeah, they're
Right.
just
Just writing on the wall.
It's been done to death, and
Yeah.
and to be able to have something that's uniquely you, and also maybe pays tribute to
Yeah.
other eras of design and aesthetics, and in some cases, this reminds me of the farmhouse where
Right.
family grew up, or this
Yeah.
reminds me of another country that means a lot to me or something. So I think that's really neat, and and like you said, that can really help set your home apart when you decorate with something that's unique that no one else is going to have.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the biggest thing for me is, I don't, when I was a little bit younger and stuff, you would go in and you'd see, go into any of your friends or, relatively same age people, and you go into their houses and stuff, and it's like, oh, hey, I have that. Oh, hey, I have that.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, that's not something that we wanted. And so we, in our house, we've been very intentional on, finding things that if it makes you happy and you smile when you see it and you like looking at it, then get it. Because there's maybe only one like it, and there may be multiple that are very similar type tables or whatever it may be, but, having those items in there that just bring joy, because I'm like, if it no longer brings me joy, like I'll rotate out with something different. But because I am a very self-proclaimed maximalist.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned that term. That aesthetic is one of my favorite things about being a millennial is that we can put all this stuff together. It doesn't have to match a certain theme, and all these things make me happy. We're going to put them all in there together, and they can be wild colors, and they can be from all different eras, and different vibes to it, different design styles. But it makes me happy, and I love it. And it's this is my personality on a wall. So this is my house. It's going to reflect on one side.
Yeah, I mean, I love putting my Italian porcelain figurines next to my Asian ginger jars hanging above my, English hunt scene photos. So
nice.
I like all that, and a lot of times too, I like finding people who maybe were stationed in the military overseas and they got collections.
Oh yeah.
Of just artifacts and things that they brought back, or just well-traveled business people, doctors, etc., who were over in Europe or something, and they were able to get a few nice things to bring back, and now at a much different price point, I'm able to do these things, and so our house is completely changed, decor for the most part. I mean, every couple of years, because it's like, I really love these things, but then I find similar things, but they're better.
Yeah.
They're from more famous artists or from better areas or something. Instead of just looking the part, they are the thing.
Right.
They're not reproductions. And so then I take the reproductions and then maybe those get resold.
Right.
And
so
it's
not just
passing that on. Or, I give them to somebody if I know that they like them. Hey, here you go. Here, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, and it's not just cheap junk from China that just goes in the trash.
Right.
It lasts for a few years and goes in the trash.
Yeah.
It can have a long life and have many lives after it leaves your possession.
Yep.
So you've mentioned some of the things you've had. What are some of the unique things I've talked about even some of the estate sales you've visited and tips you've gotten, or like, we're taking the box truck out here.
Right.
And, the grandfather clock area and some of those other things. So, again, just tell me about some of the things you think there that are really unique.
Oh my gosh. That's a hard one, because, I mean, we literally, we just made a post yesterday, and as of, in 4 days, almost 1,000 items have been brought into the store. We get on average between 500 to 1,500 things get brought in every week. And so, because we print off the tickets, and we have a running inventory list.
Wow.
So we're like, right now, I mean, there's probably over, I don't know, close to 30,000 items.
Wow.
Individual SKU numbers in the building, and that's just the stuff that's inventoried.
So you've still got stuff in boxes that you haven't gone through yet. So.
Yeah, I have a warehouse. We kept about 2,000 square feet or 1,500 square feet as a warehouse space for now. And so when we have people that do, because we do some consignment on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
And so we have a lady who her mom had passed and they were an oak tree, and you're not allowed to have estate sales in oak tree.
Oh, wow.
And so
everything comes to you.
Yeah.
Then.
So basically the family went through and took all the stuff. Most of them lived out of state. So they came in and took what they wanted and could and meant something. And then same thing with, I guess, some of the neighbors that the lady had been friends with she'd lived there since, I think she built the house in like 1986. And so she had a lot of friends in the neighborhood. And so they came and took some stuff. But yeah, other than that, and the daughter just showed up after a couple months. She put some stuff in storage because she didn't know how to process that feeling yet.
Yeah.
And so she put a bunch of stuff in the storage and then went back to the East Coast. And this was a couple months ago, and then she just came back last week, and she's like, okay, I've made my peace with everything, and literally showed up with like 4 carloads worth of art, glassware, china.
That's great.
Things like that. So, because our whole thing is, we want other people to enjoy what made your mom happy.
Yeah.
You know, if it brought her joy, we want to pass this on.
And what a better tribute to their lives and the things that they collected that brought them joy, things that they took interest in, to say, hey, this also interests lots of other people, and it can have another life and has a story that follows it.
Yeah, I mean, I look at most things as, there were blank books, and then people kind of write their own little story in, and I think it would be a really awesome concept if those, at the end of that product's lifetime or 100 years from now, that someone was able to go through and read all the things that happened, because that's what I like to think of ourselves as. We're story curators, history curators, because I love the story behind the thing almost as much as the thing.
Yeah, my mom would always write. She'd write the date on marker on the bottom of the back of something, just so we knew when it was from.
Yeah,
and you can think back of what was happening there, who gave it to us, and put their name and the date or something. So
yeah, because I love finding. I've gotten several pieces of furniture over the years that they had their original purchase order. In the drawer from 1927, or I got a couch from a lady who I think she had it commissioned in 1972 from a furniture store that's no longer here in Oklahoma City that built the couches and furniture, and it had her name stitched under the cushion.
Oh wow.
With who it was and the date, and everything was stitched on there, and it had not moved out of her little living room in the village since 1972. And so that was a really fun...
And then I'm sure it's a design and a fabric that is not able to be replicated.
Yeah, it was one of those long couches, so it was 4 cushions long.
Oh, yeah.
It was like a 9-foot couch, but it was that just stellar, retro, gold, floral, kind of velvet chair,
Yeah.
And then we have a pair of leather chairs and couch from a gentleman who had them custom made by Drexel, which is a high-end furniture company, but like where you can go in and you can pick what color leathers, what kind of leathers, what do you want the feet to look like, and they'll build it to order. And so his name is stitched on the underneath side of the cushions. And so those are the kind of things I think are really neat. And I talked to a gentleman yesterday who really was interested in one of the chairs, and younger guy and stuff, and so I kind of was able to talk to him about the story, and I think that those things are they mean just as much.
Yeah. What about some of the smaller items? I think you've mentioned, jewelry and pocket watches, things like that. So
I love just about anything brass.
Yeah.
And I love finding like those little figurines that, the little bric-a-brac that, grandparents and stuff would have had on the shelves. It's now on my shelf. But any of those things, magnifying glasses are another like little weird thing that I love finding. Find a lot of the older ones that are like horn handled.
Oh wow!
And then leather wrapped and bronze, silver plated. I've had a couple of sterling silver handled ones that have come through.
That's cool. I need to come get one of those. So when I'm looking at I sit around looking at old paper maps. I love that, but of course my eyesight's fading, so I need to get an elegant old world magnifying glass so I can zoom in and see what I'm looking at.
I have a great one that's like 6 inches around. It's huge.
That's what I need then. Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, oh man, I don't know. I mean, trinket boxes. I love just about anything that has to do with like candles,
Okay.
candelabras, wall sconces, things of that nature. Um, and then yeah, and then I'm also interested like finding out where, because a lot of that stuff's made in India, the brass stuff, and so it's
Sure.
really kind of cool tracking down, trying to find where and what kind of smiths were making it.
Yeah.
And then obviously like right now my big thing has been learning hallmarks for silver stampings. Um,
Oh, wow.
because all silver, especially English silver, um, it has to be. Come to find out, you can't just like a silversmith can make whatever out of he can make a call it a ladle or something. He can make a spoon, and that spoon can be silver plated, but he doesn't have the kind of like how our money. There's certain attributes of it that make it where it makes it harder to counterfeit.
Yes.
And silver also all silver items had to go through a department in England. I can't remember what they called it, but it's basically graders, and they would grade everything, and then they had these little stamps, and they would stamp the bottom or the handle or the underneath side of whatever it was with different things.
Oh, so customers know what quality
So it's
of silver
authentic.
they're getting. Okay.
If it's a lion's head that's looking left, like that's sterling. If it has
wow.
952 on it, which means it's 9.5 or 9.25% parts per thousand silver to other alloys. And so that's how you know like that's sterling. Because most stuff doesn't have sterling written on it.
Yeah.
Because one, you can't, like on a necklace, like where are you going to write?
Right. So
back then.
People just say, oh, this is sterling
Right.
silver in India.
So you'll see
This is
if
the
you
way
look
they
on a
actually know.
clasp, there may be a 925.
Wow.
And 925 means that this is sterling silver. But there's other things that they used to do. They didn't write the date on things, but they would know by the number and the alphabet, and the alphabet would run through the months. So if it was marked with like an R, they would know that that was September of 1812, because they continually run through a 26 letter calendar instead of a 12-month calendar.
Wow.
So anyway, it's just very interesting, all these different, because you look on the bottom of some of the silver stuff and there's 6 stamps on the bottom, and one of them can mean like if it's a crown, that means that it was made under royal decree. So like the royal family said, we want a bunch of these kind of bowls to go out because this year we're celebrating X.
Yeah.
And we wanted to have roses scrolled around the side. So you can look on those silver bowls that have rose scrolling on it, and if you look on the bottom and there was a crown stamped in it, that means that the royal family commissioned to have the silversmiths make this for the country.
Wow. And then it's ended up at Edmond, Oklahoma.
And
Somehow.
I have tons of it.
That's so cool.
And I keep a lot of it at home. I mean, we just had a holiday party, and I like using all my vintage stuff when we do parties and whatnot. And I mean, getting to get all the silverware and cutlery and serviceware and tea kettles and stuff out that have those markings on there. But yeah, that and rugs is another one that I like.
Okay.
Learning about and stuff. Turkish and Asian rugs and different things like that.
And man, to go buy a new rug somewhere is
Yeah.
so expensive.
Well, and I have some content that I've created that I haven't posted yet, but basically I was in Target not too long ago looking, and I haven't shopped rugs in Target in years, and I was shocked, because to me, I'm like, again, it's one of those things like they're throwaway, they might last 10 years maybe.
Yeah.
I have rugs that have been in use since the early 1800s.
Wow.
That look phenomenal, and they're vegetable dyed. There's no chemicals, there's no plastics, because all these rugs are all made out of plastic.
Right.
90% of these rugs that are rolled up and sitting in the stores, they're plastic. Well, you get all these forever chemicals, you get these off-putting gases that, once they're in your home and your kids are crawling around on it, your dogs are on it, whatever, like, it's just not long-term good for you.
And then it's just junk that goes into a landfill and never disintegrate, never biodegrades. So
and so
my cat would love a rug that goes back to the 1800s with all the smells and all the people that have been across it. So
it's like finding all those, it's just natural silk and natural wools and stuff. And so that is a addiction that I have is collecting rugs. So.
Well, what other plans do you have for the future, maybe near term and long term?
Oh man, we have a ton. I'm trying to think of what I'd be at liberty to talk about.
Sure, yeah, well, yeah, share whatever you want. And
no, I mean, I think ideally the dream would be, well, really the dream would be to someday own, whether that's a plot of land or something that we could continually develop into, obviously start out with the mall. We've got a good thing going there, and we're really honing in on our systems and processes. And so, but I mean, I would love to have a full-blown coffee shop. I would love to have other services. I would love to eventually get an upholstery shop opened.
Oh, yeah.
Furniture restoration, where, you can either buy the product, because we have some vendors that have stuff that, there is no seat, because maybe that was too damaged, and so they took off the upholstery, so it's just the skeleton of the chair or whatever. And, we have people that come in and it's like, oh, do you have anybody you'd recommend for upholstery? Well, I mean, there's a handful of shops maybe in the metro area that would even take it on.
Right. It's such a
niche,
specific skill, and to get the fabric and the equipment and like you said, just
skill to
the
know
skill.
how. Yeah. And because, I mean, I'm interested in it. I have a few pieces that I have in our warehouse that I eventually want to try my hand at it.
But that's not what you want to get.
But
that's not what you want to spend your time doing.
No, that's not something I want to do full time. But again, I think it's one of those things that, that was standard operating procedure back in the day. You or your grandparents or parents bought a chair or a couch.
Yeah, you own it forever, and you change out the fabric. Yeah.
And my brother does that where, I mean, he's had the same couch now for, I don't know, call it 12 years. And he just 2 years ago got it recovered. And he's like, I mean, you buy a $10,000 couch and you get it recovered every decade. You have that couch for
lasts most of your life.
30, 40 years.
So,
and so that's kind of the way that we look at sustainability and with this is how can we also then offer stuff where people can buy these quality pieces and then get them refurbished and get them brought up, kind of to modern day, where, we glue joints. We don't just do, friction joints, where you're making them a little sturdier, because we're bigger than the people were 100 years ago.
Yes.
But, people nowadays, everything gets thrown away. So people would balk at the price of like, how much does it cost to get this recovered? And so, but that's what I would like to eventually have is like basically a full service. You could either buy a piece from us or you can bring us a piece and get it refinished, get it restained, get it stripped, because maybe, maybe your crazy parent painted, kind of like putting carpet over wood flooring, they painted over some beautiful burled walnut wood, and then it's like, oh my gosh. But again, a lot of people don't have the skill, know-how, want, or how to safely, strip those things.
Yeah.
And then refinish it. So that's kind of our future, whether we continue to take over the complex and add more things into that complex, or if, someday we build something maybe along the I-35 corridor or something, like, who knows?
That'd be great.
What the future holds. But right now it's just getting our systems and processes down and getting our name out there and really kind of just solidifying who we are in the area.
I love the coffee shop idea. We've gone to a lot of, because my wife loves bookstores and independent bookstores, so we've gone to a lot of like coffee shops where there's been a pop-up bookstore where people do pop-ups and move them around, and like those two naturally go together really well. I could definitely see going to get a cup of coffee and chilling out and then walking around a library of things, of vintage things to go look around and shop for while you're enjoying coffee. So that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. I mean, obviously, I'd love to do that with a mix of, like a little deli or bakery, very small menu of stuff, just because that is my background. So my mind naturally goes there. But because I feel like I like the idea of all that stuff just being an experience,
Exactly.
How do you invigorate?
I mean, I can see, a bridal party or a bachelor party enjoying. I mean, that's a very for our generation. I feel like that, like you hit it right on the nail. To offer an experience, it's not just I'm going to the store to buy a thing.
Right.
There's an experience behind it, and it's got a vibe, and it's got all this value added because it has all this depth of meaning, and it's something you're going to remember it's not just a trip to buy this one thing. It's
Right.
something you're going to remember. I have a great appreciation for going in person to buy something, and that it's harder and harder to do whenever it's just cheap junk, and you're just like, well, why do I even want to go to the store to deal with this? But when it's a store that has those other things you can appreciate, and that you're getting something unique and a unique experience out of it.
Yeah, because we're very big also in just the customer service side. You know, like that's I feel like is the other missing part that I feel like when you go into places, you can just tell that a lot of people just don't want to be there.
Yeah.
You know, the employees just don't want to be there.
And they don't know. They don't. You know.
They don't have any
You
interest.
ask a
in
question.
what
Like
they're
I
doing.
ask you, I know if I ask you a question about any of the pieces in there, you're going to be able to speak intelligently about it, and it's not going to be. I don't. Who knows what it is?
Right. Aisle 7.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. Well, is there anything else that you want to cover about your store? Remind us your address and your hours.
So we're at 1381 Fretz Drive. You can look for the green awnings on the building. And then we are Monday through Saturday, 12 to 8. And then Sunday, we're 12 to 5.
Oh, wow. 12 days. So you are open really late. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So many antique stores. It's just it's already closed
They
before
close at
dinner.
5.
It's closed before dinner time,
Right.
and then that doesn't work
Yeah.
for
Well, because
a lot of folks.
Yeah, we try to treat this like and again, we try to treat it like a business in the sense that a lot of places, because the model hasn't changed a whole lot in 50, 60, 80 years. So a lot of it is the owner, they're the cashier, they're the marketing person, they're the everything. And so it kind of really limits, one, their hours, but two, it kind of limits the capabilities and the experience that you're able to provide. And so we, from the get-go, we were like, you know, we want to have extended hours. We want this to be a business where it's not 100% reliant on just me and my wife, you know, working the front, doing this and doing that, because a lot of times we feel like, you know, people get miserable whenever they're just overextended.
Yeah.
And so
and that's not the side of
business.
that's not what you love.
Right.
What your expertise and your passion for it is the collections,
Right.
And
the collections and the
presenting
curating.
them.
Yeah. And so, you know, eventually someday, again, there's a whole host of things, and there's more things that pop up, but, you know, it'd be nice to have a interior design aspect of it. We do have a college student, well, we have two. Our marketing lady, she is a senior, but she's also going to UCO for some creative writing. So she's working with us on social. And then we just had a lady come in, and she's going for interior design at UCO. And she came in and did our Christmas setup, because we have Santa coming to do photos. And we're also doing a gift wrapping program where we've collected a slew of vintage wrapping paper and ribbons and bows. And one of our staff members is a phenomenal gift wrapper. And so we have, while supplies last, your first 5 gifts are free for us to wrap.
Oh, wow.
And you can, they don't have to be from the store. You can bring them from home. We just ask that you have them boxed, and obviously not huge. Like, we're not going to wrap a refrigerator box, but
Darn it. Yeah.
but you know, we have people that have brought in, you know, Barbie dolls and just different things that are in the box, and then we will wrap them in vintage paper, and bows and stuff, and make them really, they're beautiful. I think of them also like origami gifts.
Oh, wow.
And so, but yeah, the first 5 are free for anybody who wants to. Like I said, they don't have to come from our shop; they can bring them from wherever. And then after that, I don't remember, if you look on our website, I think it has the price after that. It's a couple bucks a gift.
Okay.
After that, but that's just something else that we think it's fun, and we want to pass it along to other people and create memorable moments. And so we think some beautiful wrap gifts or something that, you know, even if it's for like taking to a party or something, like maybe you don't necessarily want your kids ripping those open, but
Sure.
you know, you have some special people or your office or somebody that, you know, you want to have just some really, really beautiful, unique items, because, you know, again, it's wrapping paper from long ago.
Yeah,
on a lot of that stuff,
I'm definitely going to check that out, because, you know, anymore, I mean, so many people are like, just give me a gift card or whatever. I'm like, so I'm going to come in there and find something I think is uniquely them and that they will appreciate, and hopefully they'll understand that, you know, I appreciate them and think that this is something that they would enjoy, and then to be able to present it in a really cool, unique way.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a huge high dollar item, that's what counts, is that it's a really thoughtful item. So,
Yep. 100%.
Well, great. Well, Ben, thanks for sharing all that with us. So we're gonna do this is the lightning round portion. I'm just gonna throw out just kind of either or quick question stuff.
All right.
So, top of everyone's mind after the election, Cowboys or Sooners?
I'm not really big into sports, but I would say Cowboys.
Okay.
Because
I get so many people that are like, I don't care. I'm a dog in the fight.
yeah, I really don't care. But if I had to lean one way, I would say Cowboys, just because my family went to OSU, and obviously you and several of my other friends.
It's been a rough year. Been a rough year to be a Cowboy.
Yeah.
Man. Okay, so should we travel to the moon again, or should we go to Mars next? We as humans.
Let's go to Mars.
Okay, yeah, let's go big.
Yeah, I know.
Very cool.
The moon is so 1960s.
Yeah, moon's been done to death. So, favorite book, or book that you've read recently that you like.
The first one that comes to mind is either Love Does by Bob Goff or Renewing. What is it? I forget what the title is now. Renewing Your Mind or something like that. Anyway, it's a Craig Rochelle book about neural pathways and how to kind of rewire your brain to get out of negative thinking.
Oh, okay, cool. Favorite local restaurant in Edmond?
Favorite local restaurant in Edmond? I like Eddie's. Their pickle wings are my
pickle wings. I guess I haven't tried those. Are they fried? What is it? Is it a fried pickle?
It's chicken wings, like traditional wings.
Okay.
And they brine them in pickle juice.
Oh my goodness.
And then they dredge them in potato starch. And then they fry them, and then they dust them with a salt and vinegar dry rub.
Okay, now that sounds good.
And then they serve them with dill pickles and onions and stuff.
I'm not a pickle guy, but that actually sounds pretty good.
So good.
All right,
I'd probably say that off the top of my head is mine.
Wow.
I always just salivate a little bit.
Favorite restaurant and dish.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, dream car.
Dream car, I would probably say a 90s Land Cruiser, Toyota Land Cruiser.
Okay, wow. Yeah.
You can't go wrong. That's all I have is Toyotas and Lexus and stuff. So it would either be like an LX 550 or a Toyota Land Cruiser.
And since you're, of course, you're big in and very knowledgeable about design, and do you have a favorite type of aesthetic design period? What are some of your favorite pieces maybe at your house, or the themes with those?
I would say one that people would recognize just if you say it is Ralph Lauren.
Okay.
Like cigar lounge, jazzy,
nice
Persian rug, deep greens, reds, dark wood. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the trending thing. But when you tell people like what's the aesthetic, I would say vintage Ralph Lauren is my. I just can't go wrong.
Is that like 1980s, or is that older?
Yeah, I mean, well, so it's interesting because he started out being vintage in the sense that was his design aspects. Because there's another gentleman that sourced a lot of stuff for him. That's a whole other topic. but I mean, that's the way it started out, and so yeah, just kind of that country club, old school. But I mean, all his stuff is just timeless. I don't think there's never any trendy cliche type of stuff, and so I enjoy, and there's just a lot of quality stuff. I mean, there's like with anything, there's some stuff in there, but I enjoy whether that's clothing, decor. But again, I don't purchase a lot of the like home good items from Ralph Lauren, but that's the aesthetic.
Gotcha. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, and then what's your go-to drink?
Iced coffee.
Iced coffee.
Yeah.
All right. Favorite coffee shop here in town, or?
I make a lot of it at home.
Okay.
Lee's Sandwich Shop.
Oh man,
Have you ever had their iced coffee?
Yes. Oh, yes.
So Costco sells the concentrate.
Oh no.
So I buy from Costco. Typically, I buy the Lee's Vietnamese.
Yeah, no. When I figured out, I stopped at Ellis Island across the street before this and got an iced coffee. But they've had a Vietnamese iced coffee there. I was like, this is the
Vietnamese
best.
Iced coffee.
So sweet. I love it. It's so good.
And so I like getting the concentrate because I can just whip it up at home.
Now you're making me think about Lee's, and I want some egg rolls from there. That's a long ways away.
Balmy sandwich, man.
Yeah.
It's lunchtime.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up here. So we will sign off. And once again, I want to give a shout out to our host, our location to do our podcast, temporarily at Switchgrass Capital. So check out livedowntownedmond.com. They do a lot of development and bringing new housing options to downtown Edmond. Very exciting time. And check it out. Buy a house, decorate it with all vintage stuff from the Griffin Antique Mall.